When this giant sinkhole appeared in Gossforth, near Newcastle, one November morning, local residents couldn't believe what was happening right on their doorstep.
The whole area is like different now.
Yeah,
It made a particularly big impression on flatmates Deej Paxton and Nathan Donnelly.
So originally when the actual thing had felt like literally opened up, it was huge. I mean, Nathan's standing over here to where I'm standing here.
And then it was only stopped here because of the driveway. So this driveway used to be paved, and that seemed to be the only thing that stopped it there. It went underneath the paving, but it stayed, like his car managed to stay out. Other than that, it was just a straight drop.
One step over the edge, and it was a sheer drop of 30 feet. Deej and Nathan were stunned.
It wasn't even a case of being, fearful or scared or anything. Couldn't believe that it was happening because we'd literally never seen anything like that before.
While emergency teams rushed to the scene to stop the hole from spreading and to evacuate the houses, Deej took a photo of the hole from his kitchen window.
He sent it to me and I was like, we're going to put that on Twitter. All the guys in work were tweeting about it and were managing the accounts and everyone was talking about it. So they were keeping an eye on Twitter for anything new that was coming up. And then this guy must have sussed it out. So it was just some random Twitter user who obviously knew the area, and he had put up an old map of like where the mine shafts used to be, and right where the hole was an entrance to one of the old mine shafts.
That mine shaft went straight down to a disused coal mine.
A hole of this size is about as big as that you get in a sort of coal mining collapse. It was about 6 meters in diameter, it was about 6 meters deep, but it sat on top of a mine shaft that was 200 meters deep.
The boys had been living right on top of an old abandoned mine, and a mine shaft that could have opened up at any moment.
Yeah, it gave some reason to it, other than, oh, there's a sinkhole in the garden, because that makes no sense at all.
The coal mine below was abandoned more than 100 years ago, the shaft capped and the mine forgotten, until now. And this isn't the only mine shaft here. The northeast is peppered with them, and there are thousands more all over the UK. Britain is riddled with mine shafts, tunnels, and vast underground spaces. All of them a potential sinkhole that could open up at any time, anywhere in the country. And it's happening week after week. This sinkhole near Birmingham almost swallowed a car, so the elderly lady who lived here had a lucky escape.
Only yesterday, a sinkhole opened up underneath the property behind us.
Tom Backhouse is a geologist who specialises in sinkholes caused by mining. And every year he sees more and more of them opening up right across the country.
There are 170,000 plus coal mine shafts in this country. So we have over 400,000 non-coal mine shafts, such as chalk, tin and lead and so on. And less than a couple of % of those shafts are actually capped properly in a way that potentially wouldn't collapse.
This area is well known for mining, so it's highly likely that this is a sinkhole caused by the collapse of an old mine. For Tom, this hole is also a window into the past, a chance for a deeper understanding of a growing British sinkhole problem.
I'm more interested in understanding a little bit more about the void that was there in the first place. If it links up to other spaces, where they kind of extend to, do they extend into the hillside or beneath the property? And if that's the case, what's the likelihood of further collapse happening?
A further collapse so close to homes could be catastrophic. So Tom is on a mission to discover the location and size of every abandoned mine. Because the bigger the mine, the bigger the potential sinkhole. Coming up, how does it feel to have all your hopes and dreams completely undermined?
There are no words to explain the feelings. There are no words.
Why is the UK such a minefield of sinkholes?
And here it is, this is what they were after. Pieces of flint like this.
And just how big and how bad can a mining sinkhole get?
When I saw it, I thought I got a glimpse of hell on Earth.
On a cold February day in 2013, a black spot appeared in a back garden in Kent.
I thought it was a muddy puddle and I kept jumping over it.
But this was no puddle. The next day, the snow thawed, and the terrifying truth was revealed. A 10-metre deep sinkhole, on the exact spot where the children had been playing.
As a fireman, we do get called to things like this, and the thing that actually could be in your own back garden isn't something you want to think about, really.
This sinkhole was an old shaft into an abandoned chalk mine below. After decades lying hidden and forgotten, it had suddenly opened again, like a trapdoor, with potentially deadly consequences. And this kind of mining sinkhole is appearing more and more all over the country, because Britain is a minefield of ancient tunnels, shafts, and caverns that are now coming back to haunt us. One of the best places to see how caverns from the past shape land in the present is here, in East Anglia. This land is pockmarked with hundreds of huge holes, each one directly above a prehistoric pit. Because this is the site of one of the oldest mines in the world, a place where the land has been shaped by mining for 5,000 years. Geologist Tom Backhouse has come to see where our caveman ancestors dug deep down for the rock they prized above all others. Practically indestructible, jet black flint.
Prehistoric man came down here 5,000 years ago to look for exactly this.
Every generation since has done the same thing, because the land that makes up the British Isles is densely packed with underground treasures.
The UK has a unique mining history. It's not found anywhere else in the world that quite like it. And the reason being is because of the minerals we have. From tin to coal, we have 60 different types of minerals. The Victorians exploited the minerals that we have 150 years ago. And all of those mine workings, quarries, mine shafts, whatever they be, have been left and abandoned. And over the last century, we have built on top of them with real disregard as to what was there. Imagine that this great big hole that I'm stood in now is underneath a two-bed semi. This is what underlaid much of the properties that were built in the last 50 years in the UK. And if these sort of things open up beneath property, which we see quite regularly now, there'll be some pretty catastrophic problems.
And those catastrophic problems could happen anywhere, because Britain is riddled with old mines, many unmapped, unrecorded, and forgotten, until a sinkhole appears. In places like London, this can take everyone by surprise. This hole in Greenwich opened up suddenly over an old chalk well and almost became a grave for a 7-seater people carrier, plunging the car down onto a gas main.
I heard a crunch this morning, but I just thought it was something backing into something. I didn't realise it was a sinkhole.
I've been here 8 years and I've never seen anything like it.
The chalk under London in southeast England has been mined for everything from enriching farmland to making the bricks and mortar in buildings all over Britain. But the UK isn't alone in having to deal with the catastrophic holes left behind by mining. This flaming sinkhole in the Karakum Desert in Turkmenistan is known as the door to hell. When Russian geologists drilled for oil here in 1971, they hit a gas cavern. The ground collapsed into a giant sinkhole, spewing out poisonous gas. The engineers set fire to the gas, thinking it would all burn off within a few days. But the gas has been burning continuously ever since. And northeast India is terrorized by flaming sinkholes too. The Jaria coalfield has been on fire for 100 years, and when the fire burns through to the surface, it triggers deadly sinkholes. This one in 2017 swallowed a teenage boy. His father jumped in to try to save him. Desperate rescue teams dug for days, but the two bodies were never recovered. The USA is a mining superpower, and Louisiana is one of America's great industrial states. Like Britain, it's an area rich in minerals, and there are mines all over the state. And dotted between them are peaceful waterside retreats like Bayou Corn.
All right, we'll get her cranked up. We'll take a little boat ride.
The place where Dennis Landry made his American dream come true.
About 20 years ago, I bought 31 acres at Bayou Corn. I thought it was so pretty. I wanted to develop a nice little waterfront, a bayou paradise, and I did. We sold almost all of the lots, and everybody was living the dream.
For many years, life here flowed peacefully, with residents blissfully unaware of the danger lurking below.
It was way back in May of 2012, my wife and I took a leisurely ride down the bayou in this same boat. We were approaching this exact area right here. I noticed some unusual bubbling right in the middle of the bayou. I mean, what you see now is nothing. Back when this was all going on, that water was like a cauldron of boiling water.
The bayou is not supposed to bubble. This was a sign that something was very wrong. Big trouble was brewing.
But then, on August 3rd, 2012, something occurred that really got everyone's attention.
That something was a huge sinkhole, dragging thousands of tons of earth and hundreds of trees underground.
And the state police helicopter flew over the hole. I got to get on board the helicopter, and I got to see the sinkhole firsthand from the helicopter. And when I saw it, I thought I got a glimpse of hell on earth, because all you could see was this gigantic mud hole, trees sinking, trees floating upside down, and one hellacious mess.
The hole was as big as 2 football pitches and had pulled hundreds of trees deep into the earth below. But with every passing week, the hole got bigger and wider and deeper and swallowed more and more of the forest. Homeland Security Director John Boudreau was on the scene almost every day and caught on camera the extraordinary sight of a sinkhole eating trees.
We noticed that the trees and the water line that you see on the bottom of the trees was disappearing, which meant that the trees were sinking. So kept videoing it, and these trees are probably 75 to 100 feet tall.
This is a glimpse of the awesome power of a sinkhole. These trees aren't just disappearing below the surface, they're being dragged down thousands of feet into the earth.
It was very shocking to see something like that. I have no idea what caused it. What was it really?
What it was a vast underground cavern, collapsing and sucking down millions of gallons of water and acres of swampland. It was like a giant bath with the plug pulled out. With the water level plummeting and everything draining into the void 5,000 feet below. What had been forest and swamp was now lake. And that entire lake was one massive sinkhole, growing bigger and bigger all the time.
But that is the sinkhole in the distance here. You know, when it first started, it was just a couple of acres in size. Now it's about, I guess about 32 acres in size, probably 170 feet deep. That big opening you see, that was all solid trees, just like you see all around here. They all disappeared, sunk down the hole. God knows they all went down to the old cavern, you know, which was probably 5,000 or 6,000 feet down below.
Just like in the UK, this was a sinkhole triggered by mining. In this case, mining for salt.
There's a salt dome below the earth. It's about 3 miles long and about 1 mile wide. And in this salt, that's about 1,000 feet below the surface, companies drill a hole into it, and they use fresh water and melt the salt and turn it into what's called brine.
There's a mountain of rock salt deep beneath the swampland here. As the mining company drilled into it, they dissolved the salt in water and drew the brine up to the surface, leaving a vast empty cavern behind.
They drilled this well 40 years ago, and over time, the cavern gets bigger and bigger.
That cavern was enormous, 300 feet wide and half a mile from top to bottom.
This was a man-made disaster. Man drilled into the salt, and now you have this cavern that failed and caused this sinkhole.
The mining company deny responsibility, but a sinkhole on this scale is a shocking reminder of how important it is to fully understand the deep space beneath our feet. But this type of disaster is not a recent phenomenon. Sinkholes have always happened, but human activity makes sinkholes worse. In the UK, sinkholes caused by mining have been happening for centuries, and here, even small mine collapses can have a devastating impact. In 1966, if you wanted a modern, split-level home close to the beating heart of Bury St Edmunds, then Jacqueline Close was the place. This was exactly what Brian Cross was looking for, a modern home in a safe, sought-after neighbourhood. The perfect place to raise a family and be set for life. But just a few months after moving in, those high hopes were sunk by a sinkhole.
It was late evening, it was 11 o'clock at night. There's a knock on the door. Everybody got a knock on the door, I think, from the police, and we all came out. They put the children in the front of the house, he said, and don't light any flames. And I wondered why, because then you could smell the gas, because it had fractured a gas main. I expect the council will come along and say, you know, we'll fix it. Not to be, I'm afraid. Not to be.
In fact, the life of Brian was never going to be the same again, because Jacqueline Close was full of holes. It had been built in totally the wrong place, over a network of old abandoned chalk mines, and no one, including the local council, had any idea the mines were there.
They did get all the surveyors in, and they did dig it out, and they all decided that was enough. Fill it in. So they filled it all in.
But soon after, another hole opened up, and then another. Jacqueline Close was a minefield of sinkholes that could give way at any moment, so all the affected families with holes on their doorsteps were evacuated. And 1 year on, Brian was the last man standing.
The only house left undamaged on the estate belongs to Brian Cross.
As far as settlement of the problem of Jacqueline Close is concerned, very little has happened. One can't really see any future because the problem's just not being settled, it's not being dealt with.
Every house with a hole was a potential death trap, so the council was forced to demolish them and leave the street in ruins. Now, geologist Tom Backhouse wants to know more about the mines here and the homeowner permanently stuck at the end of Jacqueline Close.
Hello. Hi, Brian. How are you? This is a nice one because, like you said, this shows where the collapses are. And the collapses all seem to kind of mainly be centred around the older mine.
Yeah, there was no disaster. Nobody actually broke a leg or
no one died, which is which has happened.
Yeah, I mean in Norwich there was a collapse. Elderly couple took 2 days to get the bodies back. It's frightening.
The couple who died here in Norwich were victims of a sinkhole caused by the collapse of a chalk mine in 1936. The kind of disaster that could so easily have happened in Jacqueline Close, and could still happen today.
One of the things that we come across a lot is that councils will desperately try and fill things in a matter of hours without looking at actual wider problem is.
Yeah, being kind to the council, you can say that they did it as economical as possible.
Yeah, yeah.
In other words, fill it in and shut up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Brian's insurance didn't cover sinkholes, and because his house wasn't undermined, he's had no compensation. So 50 years since the first sinkhole appeared, Brian is stuck here with a family home no family wants.
When did you realise that this was going to be something that you weren't going to be able to sell?
I don't know. I can't remember thinking that, my God, we're stuck with this forever. I always hoped that somebody would come along with a proverbial wheelbarrow and concrete and do it.
Yeah.
But it never did.
In the decades since demolition, various plans for the area have come and gone, but nothing has happened. The close was simply closed.
Okay, we'll go out and look at the 2 acres of Jacqueline Close. That's number 1. That's number 2. And just round this hedge, the whole of Jacqueline Close. Nothing left at all.
All demolished.
Yeah. Not even the concrete, I don't think.
Yeah. That's where the other 30 properties or whatever were.
Yeah.
So just these 2, and then no more. And were these 2 houses, were they joined?
Oh yes, they
were joined.
They were 19. There should have been 20, but 13 was unlucky, so they never built it.
Right, okay.
Unlucky.
Yeah.
But not as unlucky as number 1. A house that Brian can never sell, on a street sunk by sinkholes. Coming up, how many more UK homeowners could be stuck with a house they can't sell, thanks to mines down below?
Mine entries can cause pretty sudden collapse, and they do end up becoming, in some instances, the sinkholes you see on the news.
And in America, is the Bayou Corn sinkhole over, or could it strike again?
There's a total of 58 caverns that are located in the Salt Dome. One has failed, but there's still 57 others.
Sinkholes caused by mining can be massive. This gigantic sinkhole in Russia in 2014 was triggered by the collapse of a potassium mine. It swallowed holiday homes and a railway line, and it grew so large it can be seen from space. In Britain, around 1/3 of all sinkholes are caused by mining. This one in Derbyshire was over an old lead mine. And the Gossforth sinkhole of 2014 was over an abandoned coal mine. It formed when land collapsed into a 200-year-old mine shaft. But a large, unstable sinkhole can't just be filled in. The edges and walls need to be stabilised first. And this was not good news for local resident Nathan Donnelly.
Like the first thing, we didn't expect them to.
Yeah.
They arrived, there was a massive hole, and they started digging. And we were like, oh God. It got bigger and bigger. Every day it seemed that it was just going to keep getting bigger until it was right up against the gardens, right the way around here, and just a huge big like meteor crater.
The sinkhole was one of the biggest that the Coal Authority had ever had to deal with. A further collapse so close to houses would endanger lives and properties, so they had to act fast.
They said, oh, it'll be fixed in 6 months, you'll have it for the summer.
The mine shaft was backfilled with tons of rock, then infilled with resin grout. A slow, laborious, exasperating process for flatmate Deej Paxton.
They would do massive work on it, and then they would leave it for a couple of months.
Then the fill was compacted.
It'd be fixed late summer. It'd be fixed early autumn.
And topped off with 65 cubic meters of reinforced concrete.
And then it was maybe February time, the following year by the time they finished it.
All to make sure that the land here wouldn't collapse again.
That whole time, it was just a bit of a nightmare.
And after 7 months of work, the Coal Authority could finally declare the Gossforth sinkhole saga over.
And it's really important to us that whatever we do to fix the problem, that actually it's a lasting fix.
For the flatmates, There was at least one minor benefit to living on top of a famous sinkhole.
If you ever need to get a lift to our house, every taxi driver, you just go, where's your house at? You know that sinkhole? Yep, well, there we go, just right there. So it's kind of a small minor landmark around the area.
But for those responsible for dealing with sinkhole disasters, these are expensive, complicated and dangerous jobs that will keep happening for decades to come.
Well, filling a hole like this can cost an awful lot of money. So we spent over £300,000 dealing with this collapse. Every year we probably get about 600 incidents right across the coalfield areas. So while we've had a long history of coal mining in the UK, the nature of it probably means that we will have a long history of dealing with its legacy.
Bayou Corn, Louisiana, is the site of one of the biggest mining sinkholes of recent years, forming a vast 32-acre lake. This is a sinkhole so massive, John Bedreau of Homeland Security has to drive to get around it.
The sinkhole is quite large. It was estimated to be 4.3 million cubic yards of space. And my son actually asked me one day, why don't you just fill it up? But if you think about it, even if you get 100 trucks a day and work every day of the year without any holidays, it would still take over 3.5 years.
This is now the deepest lake in Louisiana, and it could get even bigger and even deeper, because no one can be certain that the sinkhole threat here is over.
There's a total of 58 caverns that are located in the salt dome. One has failed, but there's still 57 others.
Faced with the possibility of 57 more sinkholes in the area, the authorities had no choice but to evacuate the nearby town.
We set up an evacuation zone 1 mile in each direction of the sinkhole.
Bayou Corn was just half a mile from the sinkhole, so the mandatory evacuation meant that everyone here was ordered to gather their belongings and leave their homes. They were told that if they stayed, it would be at their own risk.
And if you stay, you may not have anyone respond if you call 911.
But Dennis Landry, the founder of Bayou Corn's Sportsman's Paradise, was going nowhere. This place was home.
A lot of people like myself, we decided to stay. And we never did leave, but a lot of other people did leave, and a lot of them never ever did come back.
That was because the mining company bought out house after house all over town.
When the sinkhole occurred, there was 159 residents that were located in the Bayou Corn area. Of the 159, I count about 15 that remain.
All Dennis could do was watch as the sinkhole grew and the population of Bayou Corn became smaller and smaller.
It was Spunky's place. It was a nice little camp at one time.
5 years on, Dennis's thriving Bayou Paradise has been drained of life and become a ghost town.
You know, if you look at first, you think everything looks pretty normal. However, if you look good at the houses on the left, they're all empty, they're vacant, they've been bought out by the company, and we believe, as far as we know, that one day they'll be scheduled for demolition. And if you walk down this way and you look left and you look right, it's the same story, property after property. What a shame, what a waste. Yeah, you can still see how pretty it was. It was just absolutely gorgeous. It makes me feel very, very sad. It makes me feel very melancholy. Not a happy feeling at all.
Dennis and the few elderly neighbors who chose to remain know that they can never sell their homes. They're the last people who will ever live in this small, ruined town, biding their time on the bayou and hoping and praying that the sinkhole doesn't strike again.
Bayou Corn will always be a victim of the sinkhole. I do not see it returning back to a thriving community that it was before.
Sinkholes are monstrous mouths that can open up anywhere and swallow anything, large or small. And back in the UK, the problem of sinkholes caused by mining will only get worse as old mines deteriorate underground. Some can be filled in and forgotten. Some can linger and kill off entire communities. And some sinkholes can destroy lives before they even appear. In the West Midlands, one woman has discovered that the mere possibility of a mining sinkhole is enough to turn your life upside down. Sharon Bickley bought this house in Great Worley in 2006.
I've been here for 11 years. We're looking to downsize now. The children have all grown up and left home. However, we can't do that anymore.
This 4-bedroom semi-detached house has been valued at £215,000. In 3 years, Sharon's had 12 offers, all at the asking price. And at the last minute, each sale has fallen through with no explanation.
So for us, we just thought, okay, somebody changed their mind. So we just dust off, put the house back on the market and sell again.
And the sale would fall through again and again.
I've come home from work, I'll sit in the garden and within a couple of minutes I'm sitting and I don't even realise I'm crying. There are no words to explain the feelings. There are no words.
Sharon knows she lives in an old mining area. But why is that making it impossible to sell her house? Geologist Tom Backhouse has dug deep into the past to find out.
Hundreds of metres beneath our feet, coal was mined, and it was an industry that in this area that was extensive right across this part of the West Midlands. And to access those workings, you need some form of mine shaft, and this particular street has a couple of them, one of which is unfortunately for Sharon underneath her neighbour's property and is causing her to not be able to sell her house.
Old mine shafts close to houses have the potential to collapse.
Hi, Sharon.
And this is a problem that could affect millions of homeowners all over the country, without them even knowing it.
So this map kind of shows what's in the area. So Sharon, your house is this one here, and you're within this 20-metre sort of circle of doom around the mine entry.
The record numbers of sinkholes in recent years have alerted banks and building societies to the problems of old mines under houses. So lenders are using old mining maps to work out whether or not to lend money for a mortgage. And those maps aren't necessarily accurate.
Now what's really interesting here is that yours is only recorded from the Ordnance Survey, which is quite strange in context with the area. So it's kind of shown there but not shown in other places.
This area has a well-known mining history, and yet only one map shows any record of this mine shaft.
There is a likelihood that the mine entry might not even be in the exact location.
I'm astonished. I'm also saddened because I know people that have wanted to buy this house, and to now find out that to be refused a mortgage based on a dot on a screen now, that dot, that mine entry may not even exist is appalling.
The mine shaft that's thwarted the sale of Sharon's house may not be where the banks and building societies think it is. To sell her house, Sharon now needs to find out if it's there or not.
If you have a mine entry, as you found out, within your property or within the vicinity of your property, that can stop the transaction completely. And the reason being is because mine entries can cause pretty sudden collapse, and they do end up becoming, in some instances, the sinkholes you see on the news.
And that's why experts are now trying to find ways to predict sinkholes and fix them before they can happen. The Peak District in Staffordshire is where many of those experts come to explore deep space.
It's down this way.
This is the location of one of the deepest mines in the country. If you want to test the very latest underground mapping technology, there is nowhere better than Deep Ecton Mine.
How long is this at it, John? It's 700 metres, isn't it?
This vast copper mine dates back thousands of years. It's so deep, it could swallow the Empire State Building. When the miners were digging for copper here, they followed the blue-green copper seams deeper and deeper into the earth and left behind a labyrinth of tunnels and shafts that archaeologist John Barnett has studied for years.
They got here by the 1700s, 1740s probably, and carried on down, and it got bigger and bigger. There's a chamber down there that they mined out that's over 200 metres across. Unfortunately, they got 300 metres beneath our feet and they all fizzled out. And that was in 1790.
Back then, mining companies didn't keep records of the spaces they left behind. And that's why we have no idea where so many of the mines lie underneath our feet. So mapping the country's mines safely and accurately is a vital task. And this is where revolutionary technology comes in.
That's a mobile scanning system, quite small.
Laser scanners can produce 3D pictures of mines, showing their exact shape and size and their precise location underground.
Scan up to about 30 metres from here, so it'll see most of this as I'm walking around.
Mark Hudson is a pioneer of subsurface laser scanning.
And the beauty about this as well is that if there's some areas that you can't get into, you can literally just lean over, put it into, and scan around.
Just a few waves of this mapping magic wand can gather all the information Mark needs to produce a centimetre-perfect model of the mine.
And that's it, done.
Until now, it's been impossible to get this kind of detail of a space underground. So this is a major step towards working out exactly where big underground spaces are and where sinkholes might appear in the future. Coming up, in London, this laser scanning technology has already revealed a big mining danger zone in a place where a sinkhole could be catastrophic.
The school itself was on top of a network of mines.
Obviously, from a safety point of view, there was little option but to empty the school of pupils and staff.
We could not have the school open. We needed to shut this school.
Sinkholes are often a pure force of nature, but as towns and cities spread across the surface of the earth, sinkhole disasters are increasing, especially sinkholes over mines and shafts. And they're a particularly big problem in the UK, a small island riddled with mines. In the summer holidays of 2015, a hole appeared in the car park of Pinnerwood School in northwest London. When Andy Barr of Harrow Council was informed, he assumed it was a small problem that could be quickly and easily solved.
They got a phone call from the caretaker saying we've had a hole open up in the car park. Came to site and discovered we had a hole that was nearly 3 metres in diameter and 2 metres deep.
The council could have just filled the hole in and moved on, like many councils have done in the past, but they didn't.
We backfilled the hole with about 20 tonnes of fill and undertook some initial investigations.
They commissioned engineers and surveyors to investigate further and find the cause. In 2016, they drilled hundreds of boreholes around the school.
Almost every single one then hit a void. We then understood that we had a much larger problem than we thought we had.
This was startling news. There was more than one hole beneath the school grounds. Now it was time to use the boreholes to properly investigate the mysterious spaces beneath.
Right, if I pull this up, it goes in, and it has to be a perfect right angle. That's it.
Using the same kind of technology he tested underground in Ecton Mine, Mark Hudson can scan the caverns and tunnels beneath the school.
Down we go, another 2 metres.
Only this time, he can send the laser down on its own and produce a 3D picture of the space directly beneath his feet.
Size of the void that we've got here looks to be about 10 metres by 10 metres in size by 2 metres deep. So we're looking at a void of about 200 cubic metres in size.
This is just one of the caverns. And there were dozens of other voids and tunnels beneath Pinnerwood School. A network of chalk mines, dug way back in the 1800s, and never recorded or mapped until now. But 2 centuries later, some of the voids were starting to collapse.
We didn't realise the school itself was on top of a network of mines. We could not have this school open. We needed to shut this school.
Effectively, it was a 24-hour period where it literally went from a fully functioning school to suddenly being an empty school.
Now, only experts in sinkholes and mining could enter the school.
Inevitably, these mine voids will not stay in the same shape they were dug originally 200 years ago. They are starting now to show signs of upward migration of the void space. So you're getting the roofs will collapse down into the floors. It's kind of roof to floor, roof to floor, roof to floor, and it gradually works its way up to the surface and then forms a depression at the surface, the sinkhole.
With some of the holes beneath the school starting to collapse, there's no way pupils and teachers can possibly return until the land is made stable and safe. That means filling every single inch of every single void. Terence Forker is leading the team here, tasked with the big, messy job of filling up the holes that our ancestors left behind.
This particular void has been pumped on for a couple of days now. It's taken in the order of 100 plus tons. You can actually hear the grout falling into the void. And if you place your hand on the borehole, you can actually hear the suction. So there's a lot of grout to go in there yet. There's some 500 of these holes to complete on this site.
The team has been on the site for 2 months. So far, they've filled about half of the spaces below.
Well, to date, the bulk grout operation on site here at Pinnerwood School has taken in the order of 2,700 tonnes, which is the equivalent of 16 double-decker buses in terms of volume. So that gives you an idea of the scale of the voids existing below this school.
When the work is done, all the old mines will be filled. The drills and diggers will disappear. In January 2018, the school will fill again with children and teachers. And the long saga that started with a single hole in the car park will finally be over. But as more and more mining sinkholes open up across the UK, what happened in Gossforth and what's happening at Pinnerwood School will need to happen all over the country. Geologists are working to locate the voids so that engineers can fill them in. But with so many unmapped tunnels and shafts below, the reality is that most of us won't know we're standing on a minefield until a sinkhole opens up right beneath our feet.